All right, today we're doing a deep dive into the incredible world of implantable technology. We're talking about the devices designed to manage chronic, intractable pain. That's the kind of pain that just won't quit, no matter what other treatments are thrown at it. This is a really crucial overview, whether you're studying for an exam or just fascinated by where medicine is headed.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about the core idea. How do you actually hack a pain signal? Then, we'll look at the two main ways to do it, with drugs or with electricity. From there, we'll get into the classic workhorse, spinal cord stimulation, before moving on to the really exciting new stuff, new waves, new targets, and finally, we'll take a little peek into what the future of pain tech looks like.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. The foundational idea behind all of this technology is this concept of hacking the pain signal. If you get this, everything else we talk about will make perfect sense. So, let's frame the problem with a question. Imagine you have a patient whose life is defined by pain. You've tried everything, but nothing works. At this point, the pain signal itself is the disease. So what do? How do you just turn it off? Well, the answer is a field called neuromodulation. The official definition is the therapeutic alteration of nerve activity. But let's put that in plain English. It's about deliberately going in and changing how the nervous system talks to itself to turn down the volume on pain. So where did this idea come from? It really kicked off in the mid-60s with something called the gate control theory. These two researchers, Malzak and Wall, had this brilliant idea that you could close a gate on pain signals in the spinal cord by stimulating other nerves. And that idea just exploded. I mean, think about it. Within a couple of years, Dr. Shealy implanted the first device, and a year after that, we had the first commercial product. That's lightning fast. And that early innovation pretty much split into two main avenues, two different ways of achieving the same goal. And that's what we're going to look at now, the two main paths of neuromodulation, using either drugs or electricity. So, you've got your chemical approach and your electrical approach. Chemical neuromodulation, as the name suggests, uses powerful drugs but delivers them right to the source in the central nervous system. Electrical neuromodulation, on the other hand, uses electrodes to apply a little bit of current to mess with those pain signals. Let's start with the chemical route, with something called an intrathecal drug delivery system. As you can see here, it's basically a small, smart pump that's implanted right under the skin, usually in the abdomen. And that pump is connected to a super thin tube, a catheter, that snakes around and delivers medicine directly into the spinal fluid. Now, the huge advantage here is the dosage. Because you're going straight to the central nervous system, you can use a tiny, tiny fraction of a normal dose. I mean, look at these numbers from the pack recommendations. We're talking micrograms. This incredible precision means you get the pain relief you need while seriously cutting down on the systemic side effects you'd get from pills or an IV. Okay, so that's the chemical side. Now let's switch gears to the electrical approach. We're going to talk about the real classic of neuromodulation, the therapy that started it all, spinal cord stimulation, or SCS. So how in the world does this work? Well, the honest answer is we're still figuring out all the details, but we have four really solid theories. First, you've got that gate control theory we talked about. Second, there's supraspinal inhibition, basically getting the brain itself to send signals down to block the pain. Third, we actually see it change the chemistry in the spinal cord, boosting the calm down signals and reducing the freak out signals. And finally, it can actually improve blood flow, which is why it works for things like angina. The actual procedure involves sliding these very thin wires, or electrodes, into the epidural space. That's the little area right around the spinal cord. Those wires get connected to a small battery pack called an implantable pulse generator, or IPG, that sits just under the skin. But, and this is the really important part, nobody gets this thing permanently implanted right away. Everyone goes through a trial period first. Only if they get a significant amount of pain relief, like 50% or more, do they move on to the permanent system. So who does this actually help? Well, according to the British Pain Society, the main targets are what we call neuropathic pain conditions. We're talking about things like failed back or neck surgery syndrome, where pain persists even after surgery. It's also a go-to for a really nasty condition called complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS, and it's well proven for long-term pain from nerve damage or poor circulation. But that's just the classic stuff. The field of SCS has moved on in some really exciting ways. So now let's look at the evolution, the new waveforms, and the new anatomical targets that are really pushing the envelope. First up, a totally new target. Instead of putting the electrode over the whole spinal cord, this technique targets the dorsal root ganglion, or DRG.
Think of the DRG as a little junction box for sensory nerves, just off to the side of the spinal cord. By targeting it, you can get incredibly precise, focused stimulation for a very specific area of pain. And wow, the results speak for themselves. The big, accurate trial compared DRG stimulation head-to-head with traditional SCS for patients with CRPS. And look at this. The success rate for DRG was over 81% compared to just under 56% for traditional SCS. This study was huge. It really established DRG as a better option for these kinds of focal pain problems. So we have new targets, and we also have new waveforms. High-frequency stimulation, running at 10 kilohertz, was a massive leap forward. And the big deal here, the absolute game changer, is that it provides amazing pain relief without creating that tingling sensation, the paresthesia, that you get with traditional SCS. And you can see here in this X-ray the placement for high-frequency SCS to treat back and leg pain. Because you're not trying to create a specific tingling sensation for the patient, the placement is just anatomical. You put the leads over the T9 to T11 levels, and that's it. It actually makes the procedure a lot more straightforward. And again, the data is just incredible. The major Senza RCT trial compared high-frequency SCS to the traditional kind for patients with both back and leg pain. The results were just staggering. 84% of patients responded to the high-frequency therapy, compared to only 44% with the old approach. This trial completely changed the game because it proved that SCS could finally be a really effective treatment for axial back pain, the pain that's right in the lower back. Okay, one more novel waveform to talk about, burst stimulation. Think of this one less like a constant hum and more like little packets of energy. Instead of a steady stream of electricity, it delivers pulses in these short, rapid-fire bursts, a pattern that's actually designed to mimic the brain's own natural firing rhythms. Now, the way this might work is absolutely fascinating. Back in 2013, researchers proposed that burst stimulation works differently. They suggested that maybe it doesn't just block the pain signal itself, but it might also change the brain's emotional reaction to the pain. In other words, it might change how much the pain actually bothers you, which is a whole new way of thinking about pain relief. So we've covered the classics, we've covered the latest and greatest. Let's wrap this up by looking forward. What's next for the future of pain technology? And believe me, things are not slowing down. We're seeing closed-loop systems on the horizon, smart devices that actually listen to the spinal cord and adjust themselves in real time. There are new waveforms designed to target not just nerves, but other cells called glial cells. We're even seeing therapies that aren't just blocking pain, but are restoring muscle function to fix the mechanical problem. And we're even getting wireless systems that get rid of the implanted battery completely. And that all leads us to this final thought. As all this technology gets smarter, smaller, and less invasive, you have to wonder, could this kind of personalized, implantable pain relief stop being a last resort and start becoming the new standard of care? Based on everything we're seeing, that future feels closer than ever.